Okay, welcome to the UK House Price Index according to Zoopla. This is for October 2025. Their insights into the current market and where they see it right now. This is quite important to know because Zoopla deals with real-time information, whereas the UK House Price Index, according to the Register of Scotland, which is the Office of National Statistics, compile this information, is usually historical data. So it'll be interesting to see what Zoopla says where the current market is right now. I have a lot of feeling here that the budget might have an impact, maybe negatively, currently on the actual housing market itself. So let's look at the executive summary. Let's get some numbers up here and show you. So here we are here, the house price index. The executive summary for Zoopla is budget uncertainty has prompted buyers to wait and see, leading to the first annual decline in sales in 2 years. This is how the budget can affect the housing market. We'll talk about that in a wee while and how that's going to affect things overall. Bar demand is down 8% compared to last year, and sales agreed are down 3% as activity cools, more notable at higher market values. In other words, affordability is becoming an issue for some people at that higher price point. House price inflation is steady at 1.3%, with prices flat in southern England, but rising by more than 2% elsewhere. Now, this is quite interesting because back in August, the collation of the house price index for the Office of National Statistics, it actually says that the run rate for Scotland, for example, is sitting at a house price index currently of 4%. So Zoopla is actually saying UK-wide it's 1.3%. They're saying right here it's 4% right across Scotland itself. Scotland is actually still faring extremely well in terms of, you look at the numbers in terms of the house price index for the UK one, which is compiled by the Office of National Statistics. Each area, for example, Dundee is 2.9% increase with Angus as well. Fife itself is 5.5% increase in house prices. The city of Edinburgh 5.8%, the Glasgow 5.3%, and roughly right across the whole of the Scottish area for the Office of National Statistics. Actually, they're saying it's doing quite well in terms of house prices itself. Whereas Zoopla is painting a more not as a positive image. I don't want to really say negative image, but more or pessimistic. I think Zoopla is erring on the side of the now is no longer the glass is no longer half full and it is no longer half empty. It's kind of in the middle, according to Zoopla. The good thing about Zoopla is that it's more or less it's showing you a real-time impact, whereas, as I said before, the statistics, of national statistics, everything that's happened in the last 12 months collated to that point in time. So historical information coming on board, which is quite interesting. So it does see the market actually slowing down, according to Zoopla. More homes for sale, plus 7% more, is giving serious buyers a choice this time. Average selling is taking 37 days to average time to sell right across the whole of the UK, which is actually still quite good, but it's the time to settle was the more important point. Yeah, you can sell a house in 37 days if it's priced at the right price, or if it's priced way below that price where it should be in the terms of the market value. Anything will sell if you price it accordingly at lower than what it should be. It probably will sell quite quick. So it maybe gives you an indication. In Scotland itself, and Fife and Edinburgh and stuff like that, average time to sell is round about just over, probably about 6 weeks or thereabouts. And then average time to settle is anything from 4 to 6 months, depending on the solicitor and all the hoops have got to jump through. Some of the more historical buildings have to get titles which are actually just at the land registry and they're not available online, and they also have to get maybe disputes in terms of title disputes and stuff like that because they've been in a family for generations more than likely. So that could be the hold up sometimes, as well as the financing, as well as mortgage companies and the appetite for the buyer themselves to get all the documentation in to get the mortgage approval. So if you're a buyer, you're probably better going ahead and speaking to your mortgage advisor right now and actually getting advice off them, and obviously get kind of ready to make sure you're in a position to actually proceed at the point of actually making an offer, because it makes it far better and far more relaxing for a seller. And it means as a buyer, you won't lose out. If you've got a house to sell to buy, you need to get yourself sort of market ready just in time, just in case. And for people that say, I'm going to wait until I find my dream house first before I put my house in the market, and you've got to sell to buy, then I kind of think you're delusional. Because if that's the case, what if everybody else is doing that as well? You'll never find your dream house because they're all waiting as well and they're not putting the house on either. So somebody's got to take that time. So it's all about managing the flow and managing to make sure you're in a position to actually be able to make an offer and have a serious offer accepted, and give the seller you're buying from the comfort that you are actually in a good position to proceed. That's key here. That's still key, I would say, overall. So Zoopla goes on to say realistic pricing is the key to securing home sales. I'm just reading this as you basically hear it. So I'm hearing the same thing as you. So they're obviously agreeing with what I'm saying and coming along the same lines as well. 350,000 homes worth 100 billion are progressing through sales pipeline, the largest in 4 years. So that's good. Movement in the market is so important. If you go back to transactional numbers, that's the health of a housing market. In other words, if you sold 100,000 properties last year, if you're selling 100,000 properties this year at this time of year, you're doing well. The market is really good. It's buoyant. It's stable. That's the most important thing. It's when you've got huge swings either up or down, it makes a huge impact on the resources available to be able to do these numbers, because you're either needing less resources to do that or you're needing a lot more resources, which is more difficult to get everything through in the transactional numbers. So certainty is probably the key for the housing market, which is good. Let's have a look at these numbers again. Overall. So here we are here. As you said, house price inflation 1.3% right across. Sales agreed year on year -3%. Average time to sell 37. Let's rack on to this one. This is the budget uncertainty that drives the wait and see mentality. Buyer demand, as we've said in the key numbers here, is -8% year on year, and it is -4% for flow and new supply, -0.04, 0.4 actually. Stock of homes for sale 7% higher. More houses mean better choice for buyers, mean more stable prices. Well, it is round about the 5% in Scotland overall. Right across the UK, it's a wee bit different. England pulls that down. They have a bit more volatility in terms of their house pricing. And the number of sales agreed is -3%. So it's still really quite stable. So what have Zoopla got to say about the buyer demand and the dip of 8% on the budget uncertainty? Well, the uncertainty over potential budget measures in November has prompted many house buyers and home buyers, especially those early in the search, to adopt a wait and see approach, because there is indications that there could be some sort of wealth tax on higher value property, or stamp duty might change, or something might change, and it makes people very nervous, so they tend to wait and see. This has led to the first annual fall in new sales agreed in 2 years since October 2023, according to Zoopla. Compared to a year ago, buyer demand is down 8% and sales agreed are down 3%, as the usual pre-Christmas slowdown begins 6 to 8 weeks earlier than normal, probably driven by the budget. The dip also reflects a comparison with a strong quarter in 2024, final quarter, when many buyers are rushed to complete purchases before the end of the stamp duty release in April 2025. That was why the quarter of April 2024, the final quarter, was actually stronger as a result, because a lot of people were trying to get over the line before the stamp duty changed in April 2025. There are 7% more homes available for sale than a year ago, and committed buyers continue to push ahead with purchases ahead of the year. And over the last 4 weeks, sales agreed have been higher than last year in Scotland, +3%, Yorkshire and Humber +4%, South West +1%, and West Midlands +1% as well. However, Southern England and Wales have seen sharper slowdowns, with sales agreed down 9%, and in Wales 8% in the southeast, and 6% in East England, and 5% in North London. Let's have a look at a graph here to show this in a graphical form. Here we are here. So here's buyer demand. Sales agreed. Buyer demand falls first time in 2 years. You can see that there from January 2023 up to October 2025, how this is affected. Buyer demand, the pink line, see that buyer demand was low in 2023. and it started to creep up. Good buyer demand, still good buyer demand overall. And there, and you see all the trigger points. Surge in sales beat stamp duty. Also, the jump in mortgage rates hits demand and sales agreed in 2022, 23. Budget uncertainty sees decline in sales. That's the purple line, is the actual sales, real-time sales according to Zoopla. So, with that in mind, where do we see about property tax speculation, which hits higher volume homes? Where is that? What's going to happen there? Well, this remains a strong link between the market activity and the price levels, with a sharper slowdown in sales and lettings and the buyer demand for the homes priced over 500,000 mark. So if you've got a home over 500,000 mark, there's no surprise there's a slowdown. Clearly the market triangle, where there's a lot more buyers at the bottom end, at the bottom price bracket, and as you go higher in price, you obviously your demand gets lower because it gets narrower, because basically as you're going up in price, less people can afford it. So that's a normal market and triangle in property. Speculation about potential tax reforms has obviously had an impact, with higher council tax replacing stamp duty, possibly. That could be, and an annual property tax, and an introduction of capital gains tax on purchases over 1.5 million is prompting early stage buyers to pause their search until after the budget, until there's still more clarification on that. So where do we see house price inflation? Well, let's look at that of 1.3%. Well, house price inflation, according to Zoopla, slowed to 1.3%, and it slowed over 2025, which is not a surprise. There's a bit of nervousness in the market. Currently stands at 1.3% right across the whole of the UK, according to Zoopla, broadly in line with the level a year ago. The divide in price inflation between southern England and the rest of the UK is actually growing, which is what we talked about Scotland and that. And you'll see that in a minute, actually, where it is on this graph. Let's get that graph up now, actually, and I'll show you and I'll talk you through that. Here we go. So this is the market, the graph here. So house price inflation stalls, continues to across the rest of the Great Britain. So you can see here, Scotland is faring very well, and it starts to go down there. So the purple line, September 2025, is the purple. September 2024 is the grey. So you can see house price inflation is actually better in Scotland this year than it was last year, according to Zoopla. So you can see that across northwest Scotland, northeast. It's starting to be different. It's starting to change the other way. Wales, still better than it was the year before. Same with West Midlands. Yorkshire and Humber, less than what it was last year. 1.2% East Midlands, as opposed to about 0.5% the year before. So it started slowly declines and all the rest of it. And the southwest, London, you can see that last year London was 1.5%, 1.25% thereabouts. Now it's 0.1%. So London definitely suffering as a result. So house price inflation across is over 2% across Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland overall. So is it time to sell? This is what you've got to ask yourself. Is this the time to sell? Well, time to sell is 10% lower or slower than a year ago. The rise of homes for sale and softer demand have pushed up the average time to sell to 37 days overall, right around 10% higher than it was a year ago. So in Scotland, if it was taking 6 weeks, it will probably take around about 7 weeks now, or thereabouts. So if you've got a particular area in where it takes 4 weeks, it could take 4.5 weeks now. So not the end of the world, but for some places it maybe takes a lot longer. Spare a thought for the people in Spain. It takes 2 years to sell a house there. I had no idea, but it takes 2 years on average to sell a house in Spain. Wow. So we're actually quite quick in comparison to places like that. So a rise in homes for sale and softer demand have pushed up the average time to sell to 37 days, according to Zoopla. Sales take longer across England, reaching 45 days in London, for example, about 20% lower than it was last year. The fastest sales continue to be in Northern England and Scotland, as I've probably said, where buyer demand remains strong. Affordability is really good in Scotland. You've got to understand that. That's what drives it. And if the average salary across the whole of the UK is round about the same, including Scotland, then it's more affordable to live in Scotland, and you're better off if that's the case. I've got to admit, it is God's country. Sorry about the people in Yorkshire, but it is Scotland. Okay, the measure reflects the period from the first listing and the sale being agreed for that. So sale agreed First listing agreed, and then sale agreed itself, and then obviously conveyancing to go after that. So this is what we're talking about, the number of days to actually get to that sale agreed before conveyancing. This measure actually reflects the period from the first listing, as I said before, typically take a lot longer. So let's look at the number of days to sell right across region. This is quite an interesting one as well, isn't it? Here we go here. As we'll see, you can see there, time agreed to sell 10% slower, but you can see Scotland. Look, it says time agreed to sell in days according to Zoopla. Well, this is according to Zoopla, remember, this is their website, 17 days. Now, that could take into account the fact that maybe somebody sells so quick and then it goes back in the market, but that's actually registered as selling 17 days when in actual fact it's not. But Scotland seems to be the most buoyant one to sell, whereas it goes right along, all the way along to 45 days to sell in London itself, 37 overall. So Scotland obviously has a huge influence on that number itself. And the next thing we want to talk about really is the largest sales pipeline in 4 years, worth over £100 billion in terms of the pipeline for property. Now, Zoopla says while the market activity is currently slowing, it's important to note that the sustaining increase in slow activity and sales activity over the last 2 years has created the largest pipeline of agreed sales working their way through to completion. It takes on average around about 5 to 6 months. See, they're saying it there as well. Zoopla's agreeing with what I said at the beginning, 4 to 6 months to complete a property purchase and move in after agreeing to buy a home. So remember, that's on top of agreeing to buy. Okay. Now Zoopla estimate there are almost 350,000 homes worth over 100 billion currently working their way through that sales process. A lot of people are wanting to move just before Christmas. Some people don't want the headache and they'll think, I'm just going to do it after Christmas. This is the largest sales pipeline for 4 years, according to Zoopla, since May 2021, where the pandemic boom was in full swing. Stability and mortgage rates has brought more sellers into the market, mainly those who are actually buyers alongside strong demand for the first time. So let's have a wee look at that graph for the largest pipeline sales, and you'll see where that's coming from overall. Here we are here. So you can see there, since September 2019, September 2025 at the other end, you can see the pandemic, how the sales pipeline, see it's 300,000 in September 2019, it drops like a stone to about 150,000 in the pandemic. It goes boom right back up to almost touching 400,000 in mid-September 2020, and then it drops back down again with the pandemic sales boom. Number of say because that's all flowed through now. Everybody's bought and they've all gone crazy, and then it starts to drop again. And the 2022 mini budget and higher mortgage rates, obviously, the number of pipeline sales drops substantially as a result because everybody's nervous about what Liz Truss had done. We're still talking about that now. That's definitely going to go down in history. And then it starts to pick up again, to back to good, healthy transactional numbers in September 2025 overall. So that's where we are right now. So the outlook, Zoopla finalizes the outlook by saying the housing market has actually made a strong recovery overall over the past 2 years, with sales volumes now close to a 10-year average and 1.2 million transactions a year, which is really good for everybody, including buyers, including sellers, including everybody involved in that industry, because it's stability. That's the most important thing. It's not gone wild. It's not gone really wild. All huge amount coming on the market, which cause a crash. They've not gone wild as in huge undersupply of properties coming on the market, which could cause another temporary boom. Now, the Zoopla go on to say, however, the wider economic backdrop is not strong enough to drive further growth in sales volumes in the near term, so it's probably going to stay the same. And they expect the number of sales agreed to stabilise at current levels with continued demand for well-priced homes. Price is the key here. If you're sitting in the market for quite a while and you think, why is it not going to current plan? It's probably down to price more than likely. Speak to your agent about that. Remember, whatever you're buying or whatever you're selling, if you're realigning your price, you're probably more than likely the buyers realigning their price as well, and they're being more realistic with their pricing. It's like when a market is 10%, you're paying over the odds, then you're getting 10% and you're paying 10%. So unless you're upgrading, you're obviously paying substantially more. If you're downgrading, you're actually winning in a boom market. In a market when it's going under, then obviously if you're paying less by 10%, and somebody's paying you less by 10%, if you're more priced than what you're downsizing to, then obviously you're losing out. So in a market where it's less and you're upsizing, you're actually better off because you're getting under less, which is more than the percentage you're actually selling for itself. So house price inflation forecast by the end of the year is probably around about 1 to 1.5% across the UK, with prices under pressure across England itself, I would say, where affordability is most stretched, and stamp duties are actually higher at their highest. The removal of stamp duty at the budget and the subject of ongoing media speculation will provide a major boost to activities and supply economic growth. However, home buyers are cautious about what new taxes actually might replace it. And this is what makes everybody nervous overall. Let's just finally look at this right across the whole of Scotland itself and let you have a look at this graph. Here we are over the whole of Scotland. Let's just resize that to get you in there so you can get an accurate picture of what's going on here over the whole of Scotland. There we are here. You've got Scotland house prices 2.7% overall. You can see it in Northern Ireland sitting at 7.6% up. That when you come down to Lower England, you're coming down to, well, Southeast England is 0%. So there's no, it's not going up or come down. If you look right across the regions, Aberdeen's still 0.6%, not the end of the world, minus, but not really. The key is here, it's a nice, stable market overall. And actually, I think it's quite encouraging going into 2026. If you are actually selling in 26, you need to do something about it now then, and not wait till the last minute. Because if you wait till spring to put yours on and you wait till summer to put yours on, guess what everybody else is doing? They're putting theirs on at the same time as well. So you're potentially not getting as much demand for your property. You're actually competing against more people. So potentially now is probably the best time to sell. If you've not seen our winter show, it will be coming out at the beginning of December. We will talk about selling in winter and the top tips you need to know. Until next time, guys, I'm Jim Parker. That was the Zoopla House Price Index for October update 2025. I'm Jim Parker for 5 Properties TV. Bye.